Hey guys, it's Corinne, and I have decided to, well, obviously, start a podcast. So, welcome to my first episode of In Depth with KP, where we are going to talk about concepts in depth like mental health, philosophy, and anything new that I'm trying. I wanted to make my first episode about anxiety. I think this is like the most common word in the world today, especially with the rise of social media and not having the resources to regulate social media. Like it's come on so fast, so strong, whatever that meme is. Um, and it was a booty meme. It was like, don't mind your cellulite, just means the booty grew too fast, too strong, too furious, or something like that. That's where I'm referring that from, whatever. Anyways, I feel like anxiety is more prevalent, one, because it's just more socially acceptable to talk about mental illness now. We've normalized it for the most part, whereas like my parents' generation, it was almost demonized. Like you shouldn't go get a diagnosis. It could harm you for the rest of your life on job applications and all of that, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas now we talk about it and we encourage talking about it. And we encourage therapy and all of that. But also, too, because social media, I feel like, causes a lot of anxiety because we are overly stimulated all of the time. And that's already a problem for people who are more prone to anxiety in general, from whether it's genetic or based on trauma that they've had in their life. Being overly stimulated is already not good for your anxiety. And now that we're all overly stimulated, we're all getting more anxiety all the time, and all the information that we're intaking at one time. I just got a mild concussion 2 weeks ago. This is like the first day that I've been able to use my computer. And even then, it's like I used my computer, I took a phone call, I figured out some things for my LLC and felt good about that. And then I sat on the couch and I was like, okay, little work break. And I go on Instagram, and immediately as I'm scrolling, I'm getting a tension headache again. And I'm getting this like whole body feeling of just like anxiety and overstimulation. And like, I'm like, wow, this like literally being on Instagram like makes me sick. Like it makes me sick. How did I not notice this before? Now that I've been through this experience of, I've already had concussions growing up, but I was in high school. I had self-awareness, but not to the point where I have it today. Like I was still impulsive. My frontal lobe wasn't developed all the way. And now that I've gotten this concussion, I've been able to sit with myself and really really meditate, not just like, oh, 5 minute meditation that I've done in the past. Now I'm like really like trying to deeply meditate and really listen to my body and like understand my mind. That's what the this past 2 weeks of healing my concussion has kind of given me the opportunity to do, which it's like crazy to say that. I expected, I was mad that I had a concussion at first, and then once I accepted it, I was like, this is so nice. I can breathe. I can relax. Like I genuinely don't think I ever relaxed this much before in my life, and I feel like we're all so addicted to like our phones, productivity, just being stimulated all the time. I did not know how amazing it is to just sit in nature and let nature put you in a good mood until I was forced to do nothing with my concussion. And by doing nothing, I started getting depressed at first because I was like, oh, sit in my dark room. And then I'm like, okay, no, I'm not gonna. That literally started making me cry. So that's a side tangent. Anyways, long story short, I decided to go for like 2 walks a day and sit on the deck in really dark sunglasses. Mind you, I was still trying to get away from the light to heal it, but it was healing to be in nature. And have like natural stimulation, if that makes any sense. But back to the discussion at hand, we are so overly stimulated in our society today. Me personally, my anxiety started definitely in the womb. This is a genetic thing for me. I know that my parents said I came out of the womb super red and super angry. And my excuse, my response to that is always, well, it was warm in there and you born me in Connecticut and it's cold here. So I was mad. I wanted to go back in. But I think it's also that was a hello, this baby's gonna have anger issues. She's gonna hate the world. It's gonna be very overstimulating for her. And this is genetic. I think that's really what that was a sign of. And even sitting here right now, just saying the things that go on in my mind out loud is like almost giving me a little anxiety. I'm playing with the string on my sweatshirt. Um, that's crazy. So I think that I was born with it personally, and then I just remember having my first my first memory of my anxiety was when I'm sitting with my dad and I'm like maybe 4 or 5, and we're looking out the window, and he said that, it's about to be summer. And I'm like, oh, that's so awesome. We can go in the pool. And then we're talking about how many bugs there are in the summer out here. And then I instantly got this like dreadful feeling in my body. And I was like, I do not want to ever leave the house again. There's danger out there. And I was so scared of every single bug and every single hazard, every single possibility that would cause discomfort outside of my house. Not really realizing that there can also be bugs in the house because I was little. And then I remember that same summer there was a thunderstorm, and I started Googling if we had dial-up internet when I was a kid. And now I feel like so old for saying that. I'm 25 right now, so I'm not that old, okay? But we had dial-up internet. I remember like trying to use the internet to find states that didn't have storms ever. No history, no anything. So I'm like just a scared little kid of like the world. And I guess my mom told me that in grocery stores I would, as a baby, I would have meltdowns and she would have to leave full carts in the grocery store and take me home, which is terrible. Um, I guess because I was super overly stimulated by like the lights and the commotion that go on in the grocery stores. So yeah, so that's how it was in my childhood. And then my third memory, these are like my three core memories of my anxiety from my childhood. My third memory is it's actually the empathy part of my anxiety. So I remember eating Starbursts and I'm like enjoying these Starbursts so much and they're so good. And I'm sitting next to my parents and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh my God, they have to enjoy this. Like, this is really important to enjoy life, enjoy the things in life that are good. I really like don't want them to miss out on this. I'm so anxious about getting them to not miss out on this. So I asked them, hi, Dad, do you want one of my Starbursts? Mom, do you want one of my Starbursts? Here, this is the one I like. Try this color. The yellow one's actually pretty good too. Like, and then they're like, oh, no, thanks. And I'm like, no, and then I get really anxious and I'm like so scared that they're going to miss out on enjoying this, and I'm feeling so hard for them. And I'm like, no, 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 eat. And I'm like trying to force them to eat my Starburst so that they don't miss out on this. So that's my first memory of the empathy part of my anxiety. I think they really, really go hand in hand, and we'll get to that. Um, so that's my childhood, my three core memories. And then in high school, I remember feeling these feelings in my head, and I'm like, what is going on in here? Why is it so fast in here? Why am I always worried? And so I go to Google for this, and I remember taking a bunch of like, do I have anxiety quizzes? I don't remember exactly what the titles of these were. Mind you, I was like, I don't know if this was eighth grade or freshman year in high school. It's somewhere around there. But I remember taking all of those and then trying to tell someone that I needed to go to the doctor for this. The internet says I need to go to the doctor, and I don't want anxiety. I don't want this, so I want to figure out how to cope with it. So I'm trying to help myself. But then people were telling me that ADHD was enough as a diagnosis and it would do me more harm than good to go to a doctor for anxiety. So I was basically shushed. And then this kind of spiraled my entire personality being unwelcomed in the world. This is like kind of the whole story of how my personality kind of forms or like unforms, I guess. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I basically couldn't be myself because I wasn't accepted. Throughout my years in middle school and high school, I'm repeatedly told that there's something wrong with me. I have a problem in my mind. I have ADHD, and but I'm not allowed to get diagnosed for anxiety, and I'm not allowed to get help for that. So I'm getting help for ADHD, but I'm not allowed to get help for my anxiety. So it's like I feel like part of my personality was like pushed down, and like I'm just then I guess as a subconscious coping mechanism, I pretend that I don't have anxiety. And like boom, right there, we should all just all be like, "Oh no. Like how the hell is that going to unfold well in my life?" Well, let me just spoiler alert right now. I'm gonna tell you, it did not unfold well to pretend like you don't have something that you need to learn how to cope with and take care of. But that's what happened with me. So, anyways, in high school, I'm told I'm not allowed to talk about my anxiety, but I'm allowed to go on medication for my ADHD, and I'm allowed to get a therapist to kind of supervise how my medications are working within me during this time. So at first I'm put on Adderall, and well, actually, at first, I remember having a conversation with my doctor and saying, "Hey, I Googled this." So you can tell here now, this is the third time I said I'm Googling something. I'm a researcher. I have like a scientist brain. I'm going to find out everything I can on a subject myself and make my own form my own opinions on things. I question the world for sure. That's a natural thing that my brain does. So I Google the effects of medication, and in my mind, I decide that this medication changes personalities, at least while you're on it. But I guess I'm all shy now. I'm all like, or I guess I kind of was shy anyways, just because I have anxiety. But I don't like to over explain something. So I'm trying to explain to the doctor that this medication is going to change my personality. And I mean, I guess I didn't know enough yet, but I guess I mean like when I'm on the medication, my personality will change. So she responds, and I don't know if she misunderstood me or not, but I feel like this was just wrong. She responds that no, it's not going to change my personality. And then you can kind of hear the heat in my voice right now because I'm like reliving this now. I'm like mad again. Um, so I'm like, okay, well, she's the doctor. Let me just take her word for it. Shouldn't have. And so I do a trial run. I'm like, my mom's like, you can always like stop whenever you want. You don't have to take the medication if it doesn't make you feel good. If the side effects are bad, my mom was nice enough to get me a therapist and pay for a therapist to kind of let me talk about how it's affecting me. And so then I also had three very close friends in my high school, and I asked my closest friend at the time, Maddie. I was like, "Hey, this is my like second or third day on Adderall. Um, have you noticed any changes within me?" And she was like, "Oh, I can say something?" I was like, "Yes, please tell me." like I'm all ears, just be really honest. And she was like, "Yeah, you're kind of a bitch now." I remember like I could do a whole other podcast on like the side effects and every medication I tried, but that would take a lot more time. So anyways, I tried all these medications, and um long story short, my grade point average went up from B to A, but then, my social life kind of declined, and even like my sport life sport life, my, I don't know, extracurricular activities, and I kind of got addicted to doing homework. And so I didn't always like train during my gymnastics practice and blah blah blah. So that's a whole nother story again. But that's still part of the story around my anxiety that I still felt over the years, and it could have gotten worse because of treating my ADHD but not treating my anxiety. So we live in a world, or lived in a world, it's changing for sure, but we live in a world where, especially me growing up in the town I grew up in, it was all about, the American dream. You get good grades, you go to a good college, you get a good degree from there, and then you get a good job, and then you have a family. So that's like that's what I was being molded into, is that idea of success. And now, of course, there's other ideas of success now. And even for me, I don't see that as success. And I never did, because I've always questioned the world and everything that's in it. I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur instead of doing school, and that wasn't supported. Most of my personality just like isn't supported in the world that we've been living in. So that just sucked for me. I don't really know how else to explain that. But then I got into fitness at the end of high school, and because I got into fitness and because I wanted to live a more entrepreneurial life, I really started not fitting in with my peers. I didn't want to drink all the time. I wanted to be more mindful of what I put into my body. And then so I just started feeling super weird and out of place. And again, this whole theme of just like feeling like I'm not accepted in life and anywhere I go. And now obviously I'm more mature, and I realize a lot of that not fitting in and those kind of more down emotions about being myself were also came from projections from girls that were insecure about how they were living, what they were eating, what they looked like. And being empathetic, I didn't question, like, oh, like what kind of problem are they having? I take on everyone's emotions. So I just took on like their feelings as my own, and just let that make me feel bad. And I let how bad that they felt around their choices suppress my personality further again. So I never stopped pursuing fitness and influencing, but it was my personality and my self-esteem, mostly just my self-esteem, just stayed pretty low. But I started seeing some success through sharing my fitness journey on Instagram and YouTube at the time. And so that was going well for me. And so my self-esteem around my looks was really increasing. And then I was making fitness plans for people, and I was very perfectionist about it. So I didn't even realize until I look back at the fitness plans I made today now how good they were, just because I was so hard on myself. But anyways, because of having a big social media following for the town I lived in, it's not huge. It's not, I was never famous or anything, but being like the only one in from my hometown that was a social media influencer, and this wasn't even a term back then yet. So it kind of went into my anxiety, or contributed to my anxiety, that like no one knew what I was doing, and I didn't actually even know what I was doing. I just knew that me posting about my fitness journey, I was helping others. I was getting better because I was keeping track of it. And then I started making fitness plans for people. And then I was getting sponsored by supplement companies and getting free products. And so, like, this was like my job. But when I remember when my sister's friends would ask her, like, what does your sister do? She would just be like, I I don't know. And then she would kind of like pose that to me almost as a question. And then I'd be like, yeah, I don't really know either. So then that kind of was just like a weird anxiety over the fact that I couldn't identify the life I was living, I guess, or the job I was doing. And then when my high school friends commented on it as well, and she was like, I feel like you live a double life. Like, you're a different person on the internet. You're this whole fitness personality, and then you're the girl I grew up with and did gymnastics with and I'm sitting with right now. And it's just, you have a life on the internet and you have a life in reality. And so that was like almost dissociative for me. Sorry, I didn't pronounce that right. I said dissociative. But I realized that having this persona and whole other life through social media, I was a different person on the internet. I felt like because there was no one around to watch me record my videos and edit them and talk to my following, like I'm not actually receiving like feedback in person to give me any anxiety or judgment. Obviously I got judgment on Instagram, but I was really good at filtering out any hate or anything like that as a social media influencer versus like in real life it was more difficult. But having that and not having to worry about performance anxiety or anything, I felt like I could really, long story short with that whole explanation, I felt like I could actually really be myself on the internet and through my profiles, and I was accepted by the people who followed me, if that makes sense. Like, the people who followed me accepted me. So this is something I'm literally just realizing now. It's talking this out. This is why we do talk therapy. That was so helpful. I actually had a space where I could go and be myself and not get as much projection from others or just so much less negativity. And I was just accepted for like the first time in my life. And I feel like that's why people thought I was so different online. Now, of course, this came with haters, but my little sister always said, having your first hater is how you know that you made it. So that made me feel better, but also having this wall of internet between me and these quote unquote haters or people that said something negative to me on the internet, I could actually process why they would say mean things and come to the realization that it's projection. And if you don't know what projection means, it just means it's a defense mechanism in psychology where you have these unwanted feelings within yourself and you displace them onto others. For example, if you feel self-conscious about your body image and you see someone on the internet that has a body that you like, then you try to tear them down so that you feel better. If you start noticing negative attributes about other people often, then you may find that this is something that you dislike within yourself. But I still had this underlying anxiety, and because I suppressed it, it only got worse, like I was saying before. So the next thing I did was I went to college, and because I kind of felt out of place there, I ended up coming home from college right away and doing online school and then pursuing my fitness coaching on the side on Instagram. And then I thought, oh, I'm going to do a diet and training regimen, which is called a prep for a bikini bodybuilding show. And it was going fine. I was getting great results until I got to that point where I'm like technically underweight, really low body fat percentage for me. And it destroyed my mental health. Long story short. I feel like say long story short a lot, but I just feel like there's so much that goes into everything, so I want to make sure I get to the point fast enough for you guys. It destroyed my mental health. To explain that a little bit, for example, I went on a date in the midst of my prep, and I get to the movie theater, and as soon as we sit down and the movie starts playing, I looked at my date and I was like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I feel really weird. This doesn't feel like real life. And I need to go home. Like, I don't know what's happening right now. And I think I drove home. Yeah, I think I just wanted to be like alone and outside of any stimulation. But I didn't even know what that word was at the time. So I'm looking back at that now and I'm like, that was dissociation. That was partially a panic attack. Um, So I've had a few of those during the end of the prep, and then I didn't suffer from a panic attack for a really long time after that. I think it was like 2 years later, my next panic attack was because of a breakup. Yeah. So that was because I just was heartbroken and I started crying to my dad about it. And then I just started hyperventilating. And he was like, "You're having a panic attack." So I was thankful for him knowing that I was having a panic attack because I was like, "What is this?" Because the other one that I had was just more like dissociative and like I need to go home kind of a feeling. It was just kind of scary. But this one was like I'm hyper, like the basic panic attack that you hear of was like I'm hyperventilating. I feel like I'm going to die right now. And if someone doesn't tell me that I'm having a panic attack, it's just going to feel worse. So he kind of brought me out of that, like, okay, you're not going to die. You're having a panic attack. You're just going to breathe really fast and heavy for a moment here and it will subside. So, he hugged me through it and let me breathe through it. And that was really helpful. And so I guess that was like my first like real acknowledgement that I can have panic attacks. And if you guys don't know what dissociating is, it's where you kind of feel like you're having this out of body experience and you feel like life isn't real. You can feel it's different for everyone. So you can either feel like you're looking down at yourself or you're watching yourself do whatever you're doing. I really like this definition because I've experienced this so many times in my life, and I'm going to get into it in a second, but I want to explain the definition that feels most accurate from my experience. This is from mind.org.uk, and it says, if you dissociate, you may feel disconnected from yourself and the world around you. For example, you may feel detached from your body or feel as though the world around you is unreal. Remember, everyone's experience of dissociation is different. Dissociation is one way the mind copes with too much stress, such as during a traumatic event. That point right there is really important for me because I feel like I always need an explanation of like why things are happening to be able to make sense with them and cope with them myself. And then it also says that dissociation can last for a short time or hours or days or much longer, weeks or months. I feel like much longer is very, very, very uncommon. But if you have like a very traumatic event, I would say that it would make sense. I definitely had like almost like episodes of dissociation after a traumatic event, but it wasn't like every single day felt unreal. Anyways, I didn't feel anything dissociative for the next few years. I only had one panic attack that I just talked about that was just due to a breakup and a heartbreak. And so that's partly because I lived with my family. I lived a pretty sober, relaxing life. I was just focused on my work and I didn't really go out and do much. I would like hang out with my friends and we would drink here and there and yeah, nothing crazy. It was just a very like simple life until one day it just didn't feel right anymore and I lost one of my closest friends just due to she's still alive, but we just stopped being friends because of like her substance abuse and et cetera, et cetera. And then that heartbreak I'm talking about, he ended up moving on to another girl, and those were my people here in Connecticut. And so I just felt like, okay, I need to move on myself somehow. And I felt like I wasn't growing in Connecticut as a person anymore. And that's when I decided to move to San Diego. And shit hit the fan, my man. And I should not be laughing like this because I like almost died several times living in San Diego. I had such, I didn't realize how healthy the life I was living in Connecticut before that was until I 4.5 years later, now sitting here, moved back to Connecticut. I actually have the space away from it to sit back and fully reflect on it. And I don't just mean like healthy, like I ate fruits and kissed butterflies healthy. I mean, like mentally healthy, how mentally healthy my life here was. Like I had so much less stimulation. I was never, almost never around toxic people. I was very selective with the people I was around. And then when I moved to San Diego, I just wanted to, and like, this was good. I went out and I experienced the city, I experienced life, I experienced all types of people. And that was great for my psychology degree because I met psychopaths, I met sociopaths, and I collected a lot of damn data on different personality types through scary, traumatizing, uncomfortable, icky experiences with people like this. And like the nerdy part of me is like kind of thankful that I have all this information now, but the empathic part of me is also like I'm still recovering from half of the stuff that happened and coming back to who I truly am. I just did like a YouTube video on the fact that I am coming back to who I am with this added like 4.5 years of experience on top of that now. What happened was that I ended up being in some toxic friendships and relationships and experiencing emotional and physical abuse. And I didn't let my close friends or people I went out with or my boyfriend at the time know about my anxiety because I was suppressed it so much. I didn't let them know that I can get overwhelmed easily, that I unknowingly would take on others' emotions as my own, that I need alone time to decompress, all these things that I learned about myself over these years. And what I ended up experiencing a few times were panic attacks out in public. So, because the people around me didn't know what they were and I didn't know what to do for myself, I was called crazy among other harmful statements. Um, Sometimes, people knew that I needed some like pep talk, but not all the time. So, anyways, I'll save you all the details there, but now I look back and realize that I didn't always surround myself with the best people, especially my first 2 years in San Diego, and I've learned from that. And so now I know that empathy is a huge quality that I need in friends and out of romantic partners, and that I should feel safe opening up about my needs to go to my friends and my partners. And if I don't, then, then they just aren't a good fit for my life because I'm going to be that for them. I'm going to let them open up and be honest about who they are and do my best to understand and be there for them. But at the same time, it's like we're all doing the best with what we do know. And I guess it's hard for me not to have empathy for people who even have these toxic personalities because I understand why. As a person who's extremely interested in psychology, I understand how they got there and, I have compassion for them. But I can separate myself from their harm now, and that's something that I couldn't do earlier in my life. And that relationship is a whole other story. But through that relationship, I discovered the term gaslighting because of the unfortunate way that I was being treated. And now I realize that because I've been suppressing my personality and I wasn't accepted and all of that, that I've been gaslighting myself about my anxiety my entire life because I was told that it wouldn't be accepted. So you get it. You definitely get it, what I'm saying. But now I'm learning to cope in healthy ways with my anxiety and other mental health symptoms. And I'll share what works now for me after I share what didn't work for me. So, back in San Diego, I was coping in not so good ways. I lost all control of this healthy lifestyle that I was living. I wasn't surrounding myself with good people. I wasn't taking care of my sleep as well as I should have. If you have anxiety, you totally get that. You need your sleep to function at your best the next day. And it's like an attachment I have with my sleep now. It just makes me feel so much better, so prepared to take on the next day. But I was partying, I was isolating, I was medicating. I was still meditating here and there, but I was also overworking. I I coped with my anxiety in so many different ways. I was using work as a distraction, and the way that I kind of realized that my mind was not right was this past, and I did a whole YouTube series on Grow Out of Depression with me right after this realization. This past, it's May 17th today, 2023. This past December 2022, I was working from home while on like while at my family's on like winter break, winter vacay, right? And working from home, and I'm trying to create a healthy relationship with work-life balance. So I'm making sure that I take days off, especially because I'm on vacation. So when I would take days off, I started feeling really down when I wasn't working. And I'm realizing, oh my God, I feel depressed, I feel sad, I don't feel good when I'm not working. And then I'm exploring this feeling, and again, long story short, I start questioning, is it normal to feel this bad? Like, and then I just realized, like, it's not normal to feel this bad all the time when I'm not doing anything. Like, I should feel good when I'm not working. Not, not all the time, but I should not feel this bad. So that's when I started this Grow Out of Depression with Me series. And that's when I chose to move back to Connecticut and really focus on my mental health this year. And now I can tell you that I've found much better ways to cope. One, actually accepting that I get anxiety now, that I'm prone to panic attacks if I don't take care of it, that I still get dissociation sometimes when I'm in higher stress situations or just have more stress in general. And it's not easy. It's easy for me to get overstimulated. So I just have to keep that in check and just be really honest with myself now. I think that's the most healing thing you can do is be honest with yourself. And for me personally, changing my entire lifestyle, basically back to what it was, just as kind of like a different person now, just as a more grown individual with more experiences, changing back to the lifestyle that was better for my anxiety, my personality, and, my stimulation tolerance, all of that. That's what's helped me the most is that honesty and that lifestyle change. And so, whatever that means for you, you can try anything that I've tried. And then, as far as coping with my anxiety on the daily, besides sleep, that helps so much. Getting 8 to 10 hours, 8.5 to 9 is usually my sweet spot. But if I'm on the first couple days of my menstruation cycle, my period, then I need 10 hours for 1 or 2 nights in a row. I just find that that's always the case. So I let myself have that. And I heard this really good tip from actually Emma Chamberlain. She said that when she has her panic attacks, one of the most helpful things she does is ask herself what she needs in that moment and adjusts accordingly to how it feels. So this has helped me as well. I just like the way that she phrased it, so I wanted to give her credit there. I always do what I feel like I need when I feel like my anxiety is really strong or I feel like it's not real life, like dissociation, etc. Um, a lot of the time, I need to be alone and I need to be under comfy blankets, but sometimes I need to talk to someone. Sometimes, a lot of the time, more often than not, it's really nice for me to like go outside and be in nature and get fresh air. I've had a lot of times where I've just felt really nauseous being indoors, so that's helped a lot as well. Side, playing soothing music. Oh my gosh. If you're like high and you get these feelings, this happens to me if I have a little bit of like weed or shrooms. If I feel like dissociative or I get panicky, then a lot of the times taking a shower really helps calm me down. And then like going into my little nook of sad romantic music, whatever vibe I feel like will calm me down. and then also kind of just accepting that this feeling is going to pass and fighting it. Usually, this is my experience again. I find that fighting it will make it worse. So, accepting that it will pass and trying to find a coping strategy that I can be most comfortable in while it's passing. So, also writing would be another good one. I didn't mention that. But yeah, finding the most comfortable way to let this feeling of anxiety, however it's manifesting, just move through you. Daily things that I've done to help prevent anxiety or daily meditation, at least 20 minutes or like 10 minutes here and there when I feel anxiety coming on. That helps a lot. If I'm out in public, taking bathroom breaks to breathe, to either prevent getting overwhelmed or once I do feel overwhelmed. And also being super mindful of my time consuming content on social media has been huge. I just realized I don't take drugs for panic attacks or anxiety, although that is common for some people or is common in life and totally up to the person. I'm just totally scared of drugs and relying on drugs for my own personal reasons. For my personal anxiety and my experience with my anxiety, I find that I really like sober strategies because I feel like they strengthen my mind and my relationship with my mind and my trust within myself. So that's why I'm having voice crack, sorry. So that's why I like it like that. I did just mention microdosing for a split second before. I just tried that as well. And I can do a whole nother podcast on that, my experience with that, because I journaled like my entire experience of microdosing and how it made me feel and all of that. But I can totally make another whole podcast on depression. But for now, this was about coping with anxiety. I really feel like I've come out of the closet with what I've been dealing with in terms of my own mental health this year and recording this whole episode. I'm now realizing how much shame I felt for holding all my mental health issues in over the years and never wanting them to be exposed because they were so stigmatized. But we're all in this together. Everyone is dealing with something. Some people are dealing with multiple things, like me, and we're all in this together now, and I'm so happy for that. So, if I'm going to leave you with anything, it's that your experience is real, it's accepted, and I validate you. You can validate yourself finally, just like I just did for the first time in my life. It's never too late. We need you in this world, so keep being who you truly are. Thanks for listening to my first episode of In Depth with KP. I will talk to you in the next one where we will probably talk about shrooms. See you there. Much love. XOXO KP.